everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 bringing to you another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. And this is the success and failures of D-Generation X Part 3, where I am going to be talking about the reunion and their entire run from October 1999 to August 2000. So after WrestleMania 14, Triple H, along with Chyna, came out on Raw and declared himself as the new leader of DX after Shawn Michaels left to go on a 4-year hiatus due to a back injury that he sustained back at the Royal Rumble 1998 in a casket match against The Undertaker. Triple H would expand the group by adding X-Pac and the New Age Outlaws, and this would lead to the birth of the second incarnation of DX, comprised of Triple H, Chyna, X-Pac, and the New Age Outlaws. Now, unlike the HBK-led DX, where they were a full-blown group of heels, the Triple H-led DX was very popular, very loved by the fans, and extremely over. And they were one of the hottest acts in the company. And for one full year, DX ran roughshod over the WWF and spitting in the face of authority, much to the delight of fans worldwide. And at the beginning of '99, Chyna would shock the world by turning on DX and joining Vince McMahon's corporation. And this led to a mini feud between Triple H and X-Pac and Chyna and Kane. And at WrestleMania 15, Chyna would turn on the corporation by striking Kane with a chair and reunite with Triple H. And this led to her rejoining DX. And it seemed like on the surface, DX were back on the same page and more stronger than ever. However, later on in the show, Triple H and Chyna came out to what apparently looked like were going to assist X-Pac in helping him defeat Shane McMahon. But, however, Triple H would shock the entire world by delivering a pedigree to X-Pac, costing him the match and helping Shane McMahon retain his European title. This would lead to Triple H joining Vince McMahon's corporation and essentially turning on DX. So DX would come down to X-Pac and the New Age Outlaws. However, Billy Gunn would turn heel, turn on X-Pac and Road Dogg, and go out on his own, leaving just X-Pac and Road Dogg as the only remaining members of DX. And around this time, X-Pac would begin a long tag team partnership with Kane. So DX, for all intents and purposes, was pretty much done. Triple H was now the biggest heel in the company, and after playing an important role in the corporate ministry, Triple H would go on to win the WWF title and essentially cement himself as the top guy in the wrestling business. No DX whatsoever. It was Triple H's time. It was all about the game, pun intended. So, fast forward to September 1999, we would see Billy Gunn and Road Dogg reunite as the New Age Outlaws, but still no DX reunion in sight. The New Age Outlaws, for the most part, would remain away from Triple H and continue to operate as a tag team. X-Pac and Kane would still remain as a team, but they would eventually break up. More on that in a moment. And Triple H and Chyna would still remain together, with Chyna helping Triple H retain his WWF title and playing a big role at No Mercy 99 when she helped Triple H successfully retained his title against Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the two of them would quietly go their separate ways. However, on the October 25th edition of Raw, we would see The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin join forces to take on the New Age Outlaws. X-Pac would come out and run interference and help the New Age Outlaws defeat Stone Cold and The Rock. And this would lead at first to a 3-on-2 attack, and then we would see Triple H come out and get involved and deliver a beatdown on Stone Cold and The Rock, which essentially became 4 against 2. And this would lead to the reformation and reunion of DX. But this time, however, China would not be a part of the reunion, and DX would be a foursome comprised of Triple H, the New Age Outlaws, and X-Pac. Unlike the first incarnation of DX, where they were heels, but they were still playing to the crowd and making people laugh with their jokes and their humor. This incarnation of DX were a lot more serious, a lot more rougher, and at times a lot more darker and sinister than the previous incarnations of DX. This DX was a lot more serious and all business, and very little on the jokey side of things. They would still crack numerous jokes, but they had a much more sarcastic, twisted sense of humor as opposed to the previous incarnations of DX. So Triple H was now the WWF champion, leading DX, comprised of X-Pac and the New Age Outlaws, who eventually regained the tag team titles. Now, this DX was a thorn in all wrestlers' sides. They would make Mr. McMahon's life a living hell, and essentially the entire McMahon family's life difficult. They would make life a living hell for Stone Cold, The Rock, and Kane after X-Pac viciously turned on his best friend slash tag team partner, which led to a long feud between X-Pac and the Big Red Machine. And for the most part, this incarnation of DX was very successful, very different to the previous incarnations of DX that I mentioned already. But unfortunately, as great as it was to see these guys back together, it wasn't the same. I felt by this point, DX were pretty much a shell of their former selves. They were nothing more than a group of hired guns doing Triple H's bidding. However, things would only get worse from here. Triple H would marry the boss's daughter, Stephanie McMahon, after drugging her and marrying her against her will in a drive-through wedding at Las Vegas. So Stephanie was added to the group as a member of DX through her marriage to Triple H. And this is where things really started to sour for me. Whereas in the past, DX were always on the same page, always stay together no matter what, dissension would slowly start to manifest itself in the camp. The New Age Outlaws would grow very frustrated with Stephanie's controlling ways. X-Pac would get sick and tired of Stephanie essentially bossing him around. So you could clearly see that having Stephanie in the mix wasn't in the favor of DX. Whereas with China, she had everyone's best interest at heart. She had everyone's back. Stephanie McMahon was not interested really in DX. She was all about looking after Triple H and his title, and they were essentially running the company, so to speak. But for the most part, DX pretty much stayed on the same page. After No Way Out 2000, Triple H would essentially kick Billy Gunn out of the group after he cost the New Age Outlaws the tag team titles after sustaining a arm injury thanks to a lead pipe at the hands of Bubba Ray Dudley, and DX would essentially become a trio comprised of Triple H, X-Pac, and Road Dogg. For me, this is where DX really started to lose its edge. Now, obviously, longtime fans would feel that DX was never the same after Shawn Michaels was gone. I still stand by that. That is true. But Triple H took DX to new heights and made them one of the hottest factions in wrestling history. However, after getting rid of Billy Gunn, it wasn't DX anymore. It was just Triple H and his henchmen, X-Pac and Road Dogg. And then once Vince and Shane McMahon turned heel, the McMahon Helmsley faction was born, and X-Pac and Road Dogg were just essentially added to the mix and just doing the bidding of the McMahon family. And that's where things got more worse, I think. X-Pac and Road Dogg, as talented as they weren't a great tag team. They didn't have the chemistry that the New Age Outlaws had. They never won the tag team titles, and the fans weren't bothered. They really weren't bothered. And by 2000, there was hardly much of DX left. Triple H was doing his own thing. He was a big star, the biggest heel in the company. Stephanie McMahon by his side. He didn't really need DX anymore, so you pretty much just had X-Pac and Road Dogg picking up the breadcrumbs of what was left of this once mighty and popular faction. And by August 2000, DX essentially was pretty much finished, really. Shawn Michaels was long gone. Billy Gunn was still on the injured list, and he would return eventually and would go solo. Chyna was doing her own thing and having a blast with Eddie Guerrero as Mamacita. They were a very popular duo act. And we had X-Pac versus Road Dogg. X-Pac won after a low blow, albeit cheating. And that was pretty much it, you know, for DX. There would be no more DX really until Shawn Michaels returned in 2002. But you can check that out on the two parts Shawn Michaels 2002 to 2010 run of his career if you want to hear more about Shawn Michaels coming back. But I have to be completely honest about the DX reunion in '99. It started off very strong. DX were the ultimate heel group, attacking every wrestler, pissing off everybody. They were a lot more darker and a lot more edgier, not as funnier as some of the earlier incarnations. And it was successful. You know, Triple H was the WWF champion. The New Age Outlaws were holding the tag team titles. They were pretty much running the company. But then adding Stephanie McMahon to the mix was just a complete disaster. So, in terms of the success and failures of D-Generation X from October 1999 to August 2000. For the first half, very successful, but the second half, a complete failure because by the end of it, it was just down to X-Pac and Road Dogg, and they weren't even the original founding members who started the group in the first place. But overall, the entire run itself during that time, it was a complete failure because all DX was, unlike the previous incarnations, this was just all about putting Triple H over as a heel. It wasn't really about a group, unlike the previous incarnations. The New Age Outlaws and X-Pac were just hired guns to do Triple H and Stephanie's bidding. And once they've removed Billy Gunn from the group, then to me the whole thing was just completely dead. Which is a shame, really, because I still like DX, but you could clearly see by 2000 they weren't the same. And without anyone generating any interest whatsoever. DX just pretty much quietly fell apart. So that was it, really. It's a shame, really, because when you look at how DX started, they started with a bang. Shawn Michaels started the whole thing. Triple H took over and took the group to new heights and to unbelievable levels. Then they imploded, but then they got back together. It was still good, but then after a while, it really started to show its age. So, yeah, my final thoughts are it was a complete failure. And the fact that we didn't even have China as part of the DX reunion, I just think really hurt it even more, because I believe if China was involved in this reunion, I think things would have been a lot different and certainly would have been a lot better. But I don't think having China and Stephanie McMahon in the same room would have been a wise move, because I think it just would have made things even worse. But if they had got that incarnation of DX back together with China in the mix, I think maybe this would have been a complete success. But sadly, that didn't happen, I'm afraid. But it is what it is. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on the DX reunion from '99? Did you enjoy it? Do you think China should have been part of the reunion? Do you think that would have made things better? Did you like the fact that DX got back together as Monster Heels? Do you think that period was successful? How did you feel about Billy Gunn being kicked out of the group? Do you think that hurts DX? Did you like the fact that DX came down to a trio and they were added to the McMahon family as hired guns for Triple H and Stephanie? What was your thoughts on Stephanie's involvement with DX? Do you think it was a good thing, or do you think it was a bad thing? Do you think Stephanie may have played a role in DX imploding? How did you feel about the way DX ended? Do you think it was a bit of a whimper? Do you think it could have had a much more fitting end? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series, where I am going to be talking about the success and failures of the DX reunion and its entire run from June 2006 to January 2007. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.